Hello, this is Gordon again with another video doing a repair on my truck. This time it is changing the starter. I was at work today waiting for a load and I had to move my truck up and the starter would not work. So I had to get the truck towed home because we got a push start from another driver and it sounded like somebody threw a handful of rocks in a blender. So I know what happened. The starter drive is falling apart, and so I have to take the starter off. We could run it. If the starter was off the truck, we still could have gotten a push start and gotten the thing home, but you're not allowed to work on the trucks there, so I had to get towed home. So here's the starter, and I'm going to show something here in a second. I want to show something on this starter. I had to go find a pointer. Right here, this is my solenoid and the starter drive thing that throws out the starter drive gear. But there's a screw hole right here, another one here, and another one. They keep going all the way around the starter. Here's my bolt hole for mounting the starter, and here's a point I need to bring up. We got two of these little screw holes between the bolt hole and between this solenoid mount thing here. Let me show you the new starter. When I called the starter shop, starter alternator shop, talked to the guy there, he threw some numbers at me, but I didn't know the numbers because I don't work on starters every day like he does. But he told me basically all it is the way the starter mounts. He says he does have that same starter, but it might mount different. I may have to move it. And so that's what he was telling me, and that's what I'm showing here. Is on this one, I don't have two of these holes between this mount and the bolt hole. I only got one. So I got to unbolt this thing, this mount on this side. I take all these little screws out, rotate this thing a little bit to the next hole, and put it back on. So you got to check for that on these truck starters. It's pretty much universal. There are different types of starters, but this particular type of starter is kind of universal with this type. What I'm trying to say is just changing the position of this mount is normally the only thing you got to do. Back to this starter job here. This is a pigtail just for jump starting. It's dirty, but that's what that's on there for. It goes right here to this bolt on the solenoid and it meets up with this big. There's actually two cables right there side by side, and they go back to the battery box. That's your positive. So when I unbolt these, in school and books and everything they're going to tell you disconnect the battery before you do anything like this. Well, I don't. You can if you want to. It's better safe than sorry, but I'm not going to be sorry because I'm just going to wrap a rag. When I unbolt that, I'm going to wrap a rag around it and put that out of my way. And to me, it's just as safe as unbolting the battery, but it's just a lot quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and start unbolting some of this stuff. I'll mount the camera on the tripod, and I have to unbolt these things here. These are obviously a 12-point bolt. Most of the trucks are going to have that. There's three of them, one here and two on the back side. And there's a trick to putting the one on the back side back in. These two you can get to, but the one on the back's a little trickier. I'll show how to do that when we put it back together. Just another side note, when you take these wires off, this one's supposed to be on here, but it's not. Doesn't matter, it's just an extra ground wire. It's got several ground wires, but so anyway, when you take these wires off, try not to bend them too far out of the way, out of their natural normal position, because you might depend on that. Since they're all the same color, you might depend on where they naturally just want to go to find out where they go, because we got screws and wires that go in different places and you don't want to mix them up. So you may want to take a wire tie. You can do that, or a piece of tape, and tape this whole group of, or a wire tie, stick this whole group of wires together up here, excluding this one because it goes to a negative. It goes down here to that, and this one. So you can do that if you want to save yourself from aggravation of figuring out which wire is which. I'm going to go ahead and tie these wires together just because I'm doing a video. This whole bundle of wires that goes on the positive here. Take a little piece of electric house wire that was laying in the garage and just wrap those together like that. You can use a piece of string, you can take a marker and put a mark on each one of them that goes to one spot. So then we'll just make a mental note of this red one being the energized wire to the solenoid, which is right here. And then these over here are the ground. Now my new starter has this ground wire. It has one on it already. So I'll just leave that one on the starter and give it back to him. This is a ground that goes in the wiring harness and grounds the wiring harness up inside the firewall. And this is a ground that just grounds the motor, but the motor has other grounds on it, so I'm not that concerned about it not being there, but we'll clean it up and install it because that's where it's supposed to be. I don't know why I let that not get put where it belongs in the first place. Either I had a reason for it when I did it, or I just forgot. I don't know. I don't remember. That starter's been on there for a few years. I am going to carefully take off the wire going to the positive wires first. When you're doing electrical work, if you read a book on it, it's going to tell you to disconnect the ground from the battery. Well, I'm not going to do that. I already told you that. But since this thing is grounded in so many places, I'm not going to start taking all these grounds off. I'm just going to take the hot off. And then once the hot is off, these wires that I grouped together will not be hot once I disconnect them from the battery. That's their only source. But these two big cables back here, I'm going to wrap a rag, like I said, around those, but I got to be careful that I don't hit a ground. This is grounded, this cable right here. It's not a cable, it's an air line, but it's grounded because it's braided stainless steel. So I got to be careful that I don't hit that. Keep my rag handy here. One more cable. Now if I touch a ground with either one of these cables, well, this one's not. This one it goes to that jump start connection, so it's not hot anymore. This one and this one are the hot ones. And if I make a boo-boo and I hit a ground, you will see fireworks. Big ones. So I'm going to do these grounds over here and my energized wire to the solenoid right here. Got the little ones off, now I'm going to get the big ground cable off. We have all the wires off. This one here is our energized wire. This one has a spot of red paint on it. If yours doesn't have some kind of a mark on it, then you might want to put something on there. You might want to put a piece of tape on it or something so that you know which wire that is. I'm just going to hang it up here over that air line. Get all this stuff as far out of the way as I can. I got this 1/2-inch drive extension on there, and it's a long one, and I got a 5/8 12-point socket on it, And so right here at the end of the starter, I'm going to put a piece of tape. And the reason is because I got to fish around in the dark on the back side, and I don't know where that bolt is exactly, other than it's straight across from the top of the starter to the back side. And so as long as I get the length right, finding this piece of tape back here, it'll help me find that bolt, because I just got to fish around in the dark for it. And see, if I miss like that, I know I missed it, because the tape is past the hole there. There, we're on it. Found it. Get a ratchet on there. I'm going to use a cheater bar. Stick a big socket on there with a 1/2 inch extension. Come on now. Something broke. There it is. It was my bolt. Broke loose. And thankfully it is unthreading nicely. And it's not super tight or rusted up until now. And that's because the socket's hitting the starter. So I'm going to stick it back in there a little bit. Actually, I can get that out now with a 3/8 drive. Okay, I got a 3/8 drive back on there now. It might give me a little bit more room to work with, I hope. Anybody thinks that big trucks have more room to work on needs to try working on them for a change. They don't. They stick stuff back in tight places just as bad as they do on cars. Well, I didn't get the bolt out with it, but I'm going to try to find it with my fingers. I got it. I got to go back to the 1/2 inch drive and break the other ones loose. Okay, I got this one on the bottom. It only took me about 10 seconds. Wasn't that hard. That one's easier to find. Much easier. Alright, we got those bolts out. We got a starter drive that completely fell apart. And that's why I couldn't push start it and drive it home like that. So it's supposed to be on there like that, and there's a snap ring that holds all of that together. But it came apart. The rest of the starter's good, just needs a starter drive, but I wasn't sure what I was going to need, couldn't order parts, the place is too far away and all that, so you won't get to watch me rebuild the starter. I'll just have to change it and spend all the extra money. But you will get to watch me rotate this piece to a different position so that it'll fit on there. Rotating this thing's a pretty simple deal. Just gotta take these off, 6 of these. I'll take those off. Here. Okay, I turned that and rotated, and I started to push it back on. It didn't want to go. There's a rubber O-ring in here, and I pulled it back off, and then I saw the O-ring is trying to get a cut on it. So what do? Got to put some grease on the O-ring, or at least some WD-40. Got that right here handy. Around the edge there. Boy, that's kind of a rough edge. A little rust on there. Grease is better, but WD-40 was right handy, so I just grabbed that. Just slide this back on there in the same position this one is, our old one. Went on that time. I don't think anybody needs to watch me put screws in, so I'll pause the camera. Those 6 screws do hold the weight of the whole starter. This here, those 3 big bolts hold it onto the motor, but these 3 little ones with a 1/4 20 thread hold this, whatever this thing weighs, 35-40 pounds, holds that. So I set it on number 2 on this impact, and hammered it down about 2 seconds after it hit. So now we're ready to put the thing back on. I'm going to clean around in there with a rag first. Don't know if any metal parts fell out. Okay, we got it in there. Got the first bolt started up here on the top. That's all it is, it's just barely started. I'm going to get that in fairly close to finger tight before I start the other ones in place, because I may have to try to rotate it left and right a little bit to get the other one started. But I don't want to tighten it down, of course, until after I get all 3 of them started. I'm going to do a little trick to get the last one started. Put the bolt in this 3/8 socket, and I'm going to wrap some tape around it, but not a whole lot. Just enough to keep the bolt from falling out of there. The sweat's getting in my eyes, they are on fire. And I'm going to wrap some tape around between the socket and the ratchet, the extension, to help keep the socket from falling off in there. Now I did not let the tape get around the edge up here. If I did, I need to peel it off. Maybe I did a little bit. But in order to snug it down tight, we got to put the 1/2" drive on it anyway. We just need the 3/8 drive enough so we can get this wiggle room and get it in there. We got to find that hole just by guessing where it is. Everybody's got their own little tricks. for how to do this. This is mine. I think I found the hole just that quick. Feels like it's threading into a hole. Yeah, lifted it up and then it started threading better. I'm going to tighten up this one out here in the front a little bit, and then I can snug the rest of that down. Got that finger tight, twisted. Let's see how well we can get this socket back off of there. Without losing the socket. We did it. The socket's still on the extension. Good. Now we got to clean off all these wires. I got a little piece of 180 here, wet or dry. Not that that's what I recommend, that's just what I grabbed. And I'm okay with it. This one's the engine ground. This one grounds the wiring harness. It goes up into the cab. But really, it's probably better to put this ground on there first. Undo my little tie wire there to put it on there for knowing which wire is which. And it's best not to take everything for granted. Let's make sure these wires are on here tight. Now this is a plastic housing. You don't want to break that, so you can't tighten it down real tight. But it has to be reasonably snug. And it is. So now we'll put these big ones on there. These are the ones that'll do all the fireworks if they hit the ground. Take my hacksaw blade here and scrape some of this green stuff off of there. Now when you put these together, when you got two of them, you got to remember one side is flat and the other side comes up with a bevel. So you want to put both your flat sides together like that. Or if both of the bevels are going to be on the same side, they can't be one in front of the other like that. They got to be off-centered like that. But we'll go on ahead and put these on there since we got room to have this offset side. Get them all down there good. It's a bunch of them. I wish they'd just have a different bus bar somewhere else and have all this stuff go together up there. But they don't. Jump start cable here. Clamp down on top of those little ones. Use it like a big washer. Notice I'm landing with my hand on this rag and on the frame. I'm not letting the wrench touch anything grounded because I'll get major fireworks if I do. I'd like to show you, but I'm not going to. I'm sure most of you have seen that. And I gotta be careful how tight I tighten this on that plastic housing because I hate changing those. But doggone it, if you don't get them tight enough, the connections will go bad. What I'm trying to do is get this wire off of the frame because that's a hot wire. I don't want it riding on the frame. This is a ground. I don't really care if that gets a hole worn through the insulation because it's grounded right there. I don't know, you can't even see that, can you? Yeah, it's grounded right here. Anyway, we should be ready to, no, we're not ready to hit the starter yet. We gotta put this energized wire on there. Now we should be ready. That's the song I like to hear. Thank you for watching.